Hi there, Andy from SSL here, and thank you for joining us today as we explore using our SSL UF8 control surface with Logic. In this video, we're going to cover everything you need to know from connecting UF8 to your system, configuring the SSL 360 software which drives UF8, through to controlling Logic itself. Towards the end of the video, we'll even cover customizing UF8 to suit your own workflow with the triggering of custom keyboard command sequences from a single button press. Now remember, you can actually connect up to 4 UF8s to create a huge 32-channel control surface. But in this video, we're keeping things simple with a single UF8. So without further ado, let's get to it. UF8 uses an external auto-ranging power supply which is included in the box. Simply connect the power supply to the rear panel connector socket labelled DC. Next, connect UF8 to your computer using one of the included USB cables. If your computer has a USB-A type port, then connect from that port on your computer to the socket labelled USB on UF8. Or, if your computer has a USB-C port, then connect from that to the port labelled USB on UF8. The port labelled through can be used to daisy-chain USB communication through multiple UF8s should you have more than one. So for instance, you would connect the through port from your first UF8 to the USB port on the second. Finally, you'll see 2 jack sockets labelled FS1 and FS2. These are 2 standard foot switch connections which can be used to trigger various DAW commands like play and record from a standard momentary foot switch pedal. SSL 360 software is the brains behind your UF8 control surface, and it must be installed on your Mac or PC in order to use UF8. So head to the Downloads section on the SSL website, choose UF8 from the product list, and download SSL 360. Once downloaded, simply follow the steps in the installer. With SSL 360 installed, it's time to open it up. And you'll be greeted with the home page. This is where you'll notice your UF8s appear once they're connected. If you have multiple UF8s, you can simply drag and drop to rearrange as needed. And to help you do this, we've got a really nice Identify feature whereby if you click down on the image in the software, the displays of UF8 change to show the logo. Just helps you easily identify which unit you're moving. In this video, we'll be using just one UF8, so I'll go ahead and disconnect the second one. The homepage is also where you'll see if any software or firmware updates are required for your system, so be sure to check it out and make sure you're up to date. One of UF8's special features is its ability to emulate a USB keyboard. This allows you to program and stack multiple keystrokes of your most commonly used DAW shortcuts directly onto UF8's keys, saving time, speeding up your workflow. We'll cover the specifics of how to set up keystrokes later in the video, but first we need to ensure the keyboard emulator inside UF8 is set up to operate for the correct geographical location that you're in, i.e. Europe, America or Japan. Now as soon as you've plugged in your UF8, you're likely to have seen this keyboard setup assistant window, and this is what the Mac presents when it doesn't recognise a keyboard that you've plugged in. Now don't worry if you closed this window the first time it appeared, you can always get back to it by going to System Preferences, Keyboard, and as long as your UF8 is plugged into your computer, change keyboard type. Now, before you proceed with the next step, you do need to ensure that SSL 360 is installed and running on your computer. If it is, then go and click Continue, and on your UF8 control surface, press and hold the 360 key for 3 seconds or until it turns orange. You'll now be able to select the region that you're in, and click Done. Next, we're going to configure 360 to work with the factory shipped Logic profile. So click on the UF8 tab, and then under layer 1 in the drop-down list, we're going to select Logic Pro. Now we also have layers 2 and 3 available to us if we were using multiple DAWs, for example, Logic Pro on layer 1 and something else on layer 2, but we're just interested in Logic today, so this is all set in here. Now beneath the layer selection we have all of the user definable keys, soft keys, quick keys, foot switches, and we'll come back to this later. Now we need to configure logic to work with UF8. So to do this, go to the Control Surfaces menu and then Preferences, and come over to the Advanced tab. And in here, we want to ensure that Control Surfaces is ticked. If we don't tick this, we won't see certain options that we need to set. So ensure it's ticked. Then come across to the Control Surfaces tab. And on maximum MIDI bandwidth, I tend to put this between 75 and 100%. I'm just going to put it all the way up to 100 today. And here are some preferences. I personally prefer to deselect touching fader selects track. I will leave control surface follows track selection on. I will disable jog resolution depends on horizontal zoom, and I'll leave the final two ticked here. Now, importantly, multiple controls per parameter should be set to 1, and then untick only when all parameters fit on one page. This will ensure that Logic presents nicely across the 8 displays on UF8. Then click on Help Tags and disable parameter name and parameter value. Next, we want to jump up to the MIDI Preferences page, and in there go to the Inputs tab, and this is where we'll see all of our SSLV MIDI ports. Now, it's worth noting if you're using a version of Logic predating 10.5, then you can skip this step as this area doesn't exist and all ports are ticked automatically in the background. But it is good practice to come in here and disable any SLV MIDI ports you're not using. So we only want one enabled today because we're using layer 1 and a single UF8. But if we were using 2 or 3 UF8s, we'd tick these subsequent ports here. They each carry 8 channels. SLV MIDI being the way in which UF8 and Logic communicate. Now, finally, we want to go to Control Surface Setup and open this window out a little bit. And then we're going to go to the top and go New, Install. And then we're going to scroll down in this list and select a Mackie Designs, Mackie Control, Logic Control, and add that. Then X off here, select the Mackie Control and set the output port to SLV MIDI port 1 and the input port also to SLV MIDI port 1. Then we just want to check this parameter list and check that channel strip view mode set to arrange so that UF8 layout matches the arrangement page. And then we just want to check that relative change mode is set to coarse, which it is. And just to say that if we were using multiple UF8s, we'd add in a new Mackie Control extender, and then we'd set that to be the next vMIDI port, so SLV MIDI port 2, for instance. But we're only using one UF8 today, so I'll go ahead and delete that. And we're ready to go. With our setup complete, UF8 has now sprung into life, and as you can see, across the centre of the displays we have the track names and track metering. Then, down in the main controller section, we have our solo, mutes, and select keys, of course. And these are all accompanied by our 100mm high-quality, fully motorised faders, which are really nice and responsive over the high-speed USB connection. Then above the faders we have a row of 8 VPots, VPot standing for virtual pot, and the role of these depends on the current VPot assignment mode. As you can see, currently these are controlling the pan position in Logic, and a push on top of the VPot will reset the pan to the centre position. And the other thing worth taking note of is the red record text, the rec, at the top left of the currently selected channel's display. So here, if I select a different channel, you'll see the red record text follow along, and it's a useful on-screen indication of the currently selected channel. If a track is actually record armed, this text will begin to flash. So far, we've taken a look at how to control pans in Logic, but there are many more parameters that can be controlled using the VPots and indeed faders on UF8. The main 6 VPot assignment modes are accessed via the pan, send, instrument, EQ, track, and plugin keys. And as you can see, these all intercancel as I move between them. Let's take a closer look at the send mode and demonstrate how the VPot assignments work in general. Logic has 2 ways in which you can interact with the VPot assignment modes, and these are known as mixer or channel view. When I first press the send key, I'm placed into mixer view, and I can look at the left-hand side of UF8 at the number keys and see that I'm looking at send slot 1 across all tracks. And at the bottom of the displays, I can see I'm looking at bus send destination for all tracks. And if I want to change this, I can simply rotate the viewport and push to confirm the new selection. But I'm probably more interested in things like send levels. So to access this, I use the cursor keys in the bottom right of UF8 and move across one, and now I've got the send levels across the viewports. If I press the right cursor key again, I'm looking at pre or post selection, and then pressing the right cursor key again, I can use the viewports to mute sends. But let's go back to level. And if I now wanted to control the levels of send slot 2, I can simply use the down key, and you'll see I'm now controlling send slot 2, and that's stated to me also by the fact that the number 2 key is lit. And I can simply use the up and down cursor keys to make my way back and forth to whatever send slot I want to take control of. Now there is an alternative way of selecting send parameters. Simply press and hold the send key and then push the viewport from the list of items that appear, so mute or level, like so. And also when working with sends, I can press and hold the fine key and rotate a viewport to get a finer resolution and more control over the send level. Then don't forget, of course, the really nice thing is that I can push the flip key and take control of send levels on the faders instead of the viewports. And this is great for riding effect sends or balancing headphone mixes. So far we've looked at working in Mixer View with sends, but Channel View offers an alternative way of dealing with viewport assignment modes. And it's based off the selected track and dealing with all of the available parameters in one place. I can access Channel View by simply pressing the viewport assignment key once more, so in this case, just press Send to go from Mixer to Channel View. And you'll notice that the channel key on the left of UF8 lights up to confirm that I'm in Channel View. Now we can see from the displays on UF8 that for the selected channel, I have control of all the send parameters on the first 4 viewports, so viewport 2 has the level, and for example viewport 4 has the mute on and off. And then from viewport 5, I have access to send 2 parameters on viewports 5, 6, 7 and 8. And of course I can use the cursor keys to access the rest of the sends like so. And in Channel View, the up and down cursor keys allow me to change the selected channel. Before we take a look at the other viewport assignment modes in Logic, let's first look at the selection mode keys on the right hand side of UF8. And there are 2 modes here, Norm for normal and Rec for record. The third key is disabled as it doesn't apply to Logic. In Norm mode, the select keys behave as the regular track select keys in Logic, like so. And in Rec mode, the select keys become track record arms and turn red, like so. You'll notice some additional labels called Clear and Zero beneath the selection mode keys, and these can be used with Logic for some essential workflow enhancement features. For example, things like clearing solos or clearing mutes. So to access these features, I'm going to select some solos and press and hold the clear key and then press a solo and they'll clear. You can also use this with mutes. Press and hold clear, and press the cut key. Then on the right hand button, we have the zero function, and this can be used to zero faders. So press and hold 0, and then press the select key to zero a fader. Let's take a look at the large stepped channel encoder on the right hand side of UF8. By default, it will bank you through your tracks one channel at a time, like so. Or I can use the bank keys to bank in multiples of 8, like this. Now the channel encoder actually has 2 alternative modes of operation. If I press the nav key, this will put the channel encoder into a timeline scroll. You can see the playhead cursor moving in the session there. Or if I press the focus key, this turns the channel encoder into a mouse scroll. And this is great for controlling plugins. So let's open up a plugin in here. Just so happens to be SSL native drum strip. Hover the mouse over the control you want and then turn the channel encoder for hands-on control. And if you need to adjust the sensitivity, just head to your system preferences and alter the mouse scroll speed setting. Let's take a look at the cursor keys and the zoom key at the bottom right of UF8. With the zoom key lit, the cursor keys perform horizontal and vertical track zooming in the arrangement page, and with the zoom key disabled, this is how you navigate around mixer and channel view as we've already seen. The automation keys at the bottom left of UF8 are used to set the automation state for the currently selected track. So all I need to do is select the track I'm interested in, and then press one of the automation keys, in this case, touch. And the track is now ready for automation. Plugin mode is great for controlling plugin parameters using the VPOTs or the faders, and it's one of the main VPOT assignment modes, so it can operate in either channel or mixer view depending on how you like to work. The first time I press the plugin key, I'm placed into mixer view, and I can see from the number keys that I'm looking at slot 1 across all tracks on UF8. I want to open up the SSL native plugin on the kick drum, so I just push the VPOT, and the parameters are spread across the VPOTs with the parameter names on the displays above. And I can use the cursor keys to navigate through all the parameters in the plugin, and then just dive in and manipulate them like so. Pushing a VPOT will default that particular plugin control. And of course, the really nice thing is that I can use the flip key to put the parameters on the faders for control from here. Nice. Once I've finished controlling those plugin parameters, I can press the plugin key again to come up a level and view the first plugin slot across all tracks. I can then press the plugin key once more, and now I'm in channel view. Once in channel view, I can select the track I'm interested in, and now the VPOTs allow me access to any of the plugin slots on that track. So if I press the second VPOT, I go into insert slot 2, and the parameters are spread across the controls. Instrument mode will allow me to take control of virtual instrument parameters on the surface. So to enter instrument mode, simply press the instrument key, and I can see on the 8th track I have the retro synth on that channel in Logic. So I press down on the VPOT, and the parameters are spread across like so, and I can get hands-on with these. If I had more parameters, I would use the cursor keys to access those pages. But of course, the really nice thing is that I can use the flip key to put these parameters onto the faders for hands-on control down here. I'll press the flip key again to come out of flip mode, and then press the instrument key to come back up a level to look at all my virtual instrument plugins. EQ mode is able to work in mixer or channel view. The first time I press the EQ key, I'm placed into mixer view. And on UF8's displays, I can see that the VPOTs are controlling the high-pass filter across all tracks. And I can use the up and down arrows to move through the different bands of Logic's EQ, like so. Pressing the left and right arrow keys will take me through the different parameters in that band, so now I've got control of Q. If I press the EQ key again, this will now place me into channel view, and I know this because the channel key on the left of UF8 is now lit. And once I'm here, I can control the entire EQ of the selected track all in one place across the VPOTs. And get hands-on tweaking this EQ like this. And I can use the left and right arrow keys to access any parameters I cannot see on this page, and moving through the bands here. Now the really nice thing is that I can use the flip key to flip the EQ parameters down onto the faders, which is obviously great for filter sweeps and so on. Track mode offers us a number of useful functions, accessed via the submenu by pushing and holding the track key. For instance, we can set input and output destinations using the VPOTs, but perhaps the most useful mode is the volume one. Push on the VPOT here, and now I've got a constant fader dB readout across all displays. Each UF8 control surface offers the flexibility to customize the 43 user-definable keys with a mixture of your own keyboard command sequences or any of the DAW commands available from the list in 360. The user keys are accessed from the top row of 8 keys, and you can move through the 5 different banks using keys 1 to 5 at the top right here. You also have the 3 quick keys at the top left of UF8, and these can be assigned to your most commonly used functions. These can pre-assign to open and close the mix window. Number 2 just reveals my aux tracks in Logic. And then number 3 is the global view mode, which will put back all the tracks into the mixer. Let's take a look through the user banks. So in user bank 1, we have the transport keys assigned, like so, and things like cycle on and off. And in user bank 2, we've got things like click track on and off, drop markers and replace, etc. And then in user bank 3, we've got the modifier keys and some saving functions. And in user bank 4, I've got my different Logic mixer view options. So for example, I can press the audio instrument key and just show those tracks in the mixer, or I can add the audio tracks to it by pressing and holding the audio instruments key and pressing the audio track key as well. And then I can return to viewing all of the tracks in my Logic mixer by pressing quick key 3, which of course is the global view button. And finally, we have access to the F keys in user bank 5, and these can perform a variety of tasks. One example is using F keys 2 and 3 to copy and paste when used in conjunction with the Shift key. So select a region, hold Shift, press F2 to copy, and then keeping Shift held, press F3 to paste. Let's take a look at rearranging some of the available DAW commands onto our user keys of UF8 to fit our own workflow. Now you'll see that in user bank 1, keys 7 and 8 are free and available to be assigned. Now I know that the control modifier plus the name value command will enable me to clear clips in Logic. So let's open up 360. We can see we have the free keys here. And if I scroll down to the control modifier, and assign it to key 7. And then on the next key, I'm going to go to the list and assign this to name stroke value. Close this down here. Now, if we jump back into Logic, I can press and hold the control key and then press the name value key and it will clear a clip. So this track has a clip and I can just go to my UF8 control surface and clear it with those commands. But this isn't the only thing we can do. We can also assign our favourite DAW shortcuts to keys on UF8. So by means of example, we'll go to user bank 2 where there's a free key, and we're going to take a look at assigning using 360. So let's go on to user bank 2 in here, get the free key. This time we're choosing keyboard command, and in this space here I click with the mouse and I'm going to type Shift G. This is the suspend groups shortcut, and I'm going to give it a label here. And close the window. And jump back into Logic. And now, as you can see, that key triggers the suspend group keyboard command. Now, this is just one example of a keyboard shortcut I use most often, but you could replace this with anything you use quite often, or it could even be a sequence of keyboard commands if you want to get really slick with it. A really powerful feature of Logic's Mackie control integration is what's called the programmable user modes. These can be used in a number of interesting ways, and we're going to take a look at creating a dedicated VPOT layout for our SSL native channel strip plugin. So to do this, we're going to open up the controller assignments menu, and I'm also going to open up an instance of SSL native channel strip. But of course, this could be any plugin of your choosing. And next we want to access one of the available user modes, and I happen to know that Shift plus Pan gives me a user mode 2. So I'm going to press and hold the Shift modifier and then press Pan. The screens go blank, so I know I'm in one of the user programmable modes. And once I'm here, I go over to the Learn button, and then I go to the control I want to assign in the plugin and move that around. And then I simply turn the VPOT on the controller I want to assign it to. And before I go ahead and repeat this process for the other controls, just make sure that's set to selected track. So hit Learn again, come over, move the control in the plugin, and then move the VPOT on the surface. And once I've clicked the Learn button, you'll see it will update. and I've assigned those two channel strip controls here. And I would of course repeat the process for all the controls in the plugin if I wanted to. And this is very, very cool because if I have channel strip plugins on other tracks, I can simply select the track and I've got that dedicated layout once more. And to come out of this special layout mode, I just press another VPOT assignment key, so pan for example. And if I want to go back at any point, Shift plus pan takes me back in. All the changes you make to your key assignments in 360 are automatically saved in the background for you, so you don't have to remember to formally save every time you change a key assignment. However, should you wish to save a profile, perhaps you're working out of a different studio, you can of course do this by hitting the disclosure triangle to the left of the profile name and then using the save and load buttons accordingly. Now, if for any reason you want to revert to the factory shipped Logic profile, just hit the revert button here and that will do that for you. We hope you found this video tutorial useful in exploring some of what UF8 and Logic can do together. We haven't covered every single function, but if you're interested in learning more about the Mackie control integration, then you can head to the Help menu in Logic and go to Control Surfaces Support. And this will load the page here. Go to the table of contents and click on Mackie Control and look through there. For everything else, please visit the SSL website and don't forget to check out the SSL UF8 user guide. Until next time, goodbye.